mystique that Ferrari cars have always had, ever since the very first Ferrari badged machine rolled out of the workshops in 1947. And that mystique has grown over the years so that today there is a veritable feeding frenzy to buy just about every Ferrari model ever made. The Ferrari 250 GTO that first saw the light of day in 1962 has gone down in motorsport history as one of the most exciting cars ever to compete. Only rarely since that introduction has Ferrari chosen to allocate those precious and, dare I say it, sacred letters to another car from another era. This is a 1985 GTO. It was designed at Pininfarina by Leonardo Fioravanti and built at Scaglietti's workshops. It's come to be known as the 288 GTO, even though it left the factory as just a plain GTO. So how did this GTO come about? Well, its DNA really goes way back into the 1960s, when the Dino 206 aluminium-bodied streetcar begat the 2.4-litre Dino 246 steel-bodied car, and when more power is required, that was replaced by the 3-litre V8-engined 308. The final iteration of this series was the Ferrari 328 with a 3.2-litre engine, replete with 4-valve heads and fuel injection. And all these cars had transverse engines. But the 288 GTO was specifically designed for Group B racing. Group B cars with engines limited to 4 litres or the turbocharged equivalent 1.4 times smaller had already proven themselves as winners in the WRC, the World Rally Championship, and would therefore lend themselves very easily to a racing series. Boost was to be unlimited and exotic materials encouraged. At the time in 1985, this surely must have been enough car for anyone who wanted to go motoring rapidly. Which is just as well when you think that the Group B racing series never got off the ground, and the bulk of the production of these 288 GTOs was destined for use on the street or merely as a track car. But Ferrari did make 5 evoluzioni versions of this car that only weighed 2,000 pounds. That's 550 pounds lighter than this one, and had 650 horsepower and was good for 225 miles an hour. What a beast that must have been. To homologate the 288 GTO, Ferrari had to build at least 200 of them. Well, they wanted to have a 5-speed gearbox, so there it is. And that meant they had to put the engine fore and aft. That's the big V8 engine, nicely tucked away at the middle of the car there for weight and balance. And of course, the all-important intercoolers, cooling the air charge that comes from the turbochargers before it goes into the engine. Gives it more power, of course. Very, very neat installation. You can get at everything quite easily. All of that gave the GTO a wheelbase that was 4 inches longer than the 308. It also needed these bulged wings to cover up those wheels. I see with a nod to the original GTO, they put in some tasty touches like this lip spoiler at the back here and Look at those megaphone exhausts. I bet they'll make a really nasty crackle. And I like these vents in the rear wings, ostensibly to cool the brakes, just what the original GTO used to have. This in many ways really was the ultimate grown-up Dino, because it was such a small car, and even with its 400 odd horsepower, you can still chuck it round. It was the first production car to go through the 300-kilometre barrier as well. It had a top speed of just under 190 miles an hour. And it weighed in at 2,550 pounds. Now that's 500 pounds lighter than a Ferrari 308. With fiberglass, aluminium, Kevlar and carbon fibre in abundance, that's hardly surprising. It was going to make, without any doubt, a great Group B racer. What I notice about this car is how positive the steering is. It's very, very direct. No power steering, of course. You've got to put some beef into the wheel. But this car goes where I point it, very encouraging. And the other thing is, it's beautifully balanced. I mean, having that engine right up against my back and the gearbox well back distributes the weight over the four wheels really nicely. Look at the vision too. I got a really good view here. I like these thin pillars either side because I can see the front of that wing very nicely. Great for clipping apexes, and I can also see the front of that wing. So whoever put this car together definitely was either a racer himself or in touch with someone who was. But this is a great car, and it would have been fun to race one of these Ferraris against the best of Audi, Porsche and Ford in that Group B series. I think this car was full of promise, and it's rather sad that it was never able to fulfill its destiny as a racing car. Altogether, they built 272 of these little beauties, which makes it a pretty rare car indeed. But this was the very last supercar that Ferrari made before the Commentatore himself passed away at the age of 90. And if only for that reason alone, that makes this car very sought after today.